February 12th, 2022. This here's Clint Cowpoke doing this here two-part. Well, it's sort of a two-parter. They're all it's all. Well, we finished the first trilogy. Now we're doing 4 of them, so there's like two-parters. This one is the Grave Robbers from Space, followed by the Sword Fakery. Yep. So the Grave Robbers from Space, and yeah, this is an infamous one, and we're just going to start filming because we don't want to waste a lot of footage. So let's just do it. But anyway, I guess for visual purposes, Disney hat style up there on top. They're not Disney. They're from the Phantom. They're the ears off the Infant Queen. But Infant Queen. I think a Marlowe fuck you, Cal-Cat. Or the other Cal-Cat, yeah. He already talked about what this next episode's going to be about. I already went into that on the last making of, so I don't need to do much of that. This is much better written than the last episode. As we start out here with the teaser. Either the writing style got better, or the... which is likely, or the people writing it are just a little better at more prolific at English than the ones. And not as many problems with this. So yeah, the basic premise is that there was this major bloggy thing. There were 3 or 4 different things over the past decade, or in some years. There were 3 or 4 different things, and real brief. There was the Bullshito, which had the Jung Swan, ex-Jung Swan students mega thread that went on for 4,000 pages and had 100 ex-students on it, posting on there, and it went on for a good 11, 12 years. And then there was the Channel Awesome scandal story. And subsequent fall of the scandal, but not the channel. Channel Awesome's still there. That was more recent. That was 2018 to the present. That was more recent. That was very long too. We also that wasn't about ex-students and ex-cult members in a cult. That was more about mismanagement on that website. In which case they thought Cal-Cat was involved because of his brief dealings with them earlier on. Around the same time, Lindsay Ellis and that, and then not since then. So yeah, he had nothing to do with them when that scandal broke at all. So, except that I saw them in a convention. Yeah. But yeah, we're still subscribed to that channel anyway. So channel, yeah. They couldn't put one of the opportunists put Cal-Cat's video clip in there without permission in his video. Cal-Cat told him to take that out. And he went, and some other people did too. Basically because I'm not involved anymore. So, at the time, in 2018, I was like, I'm not hanging out with those guys. I've never actually, except for 2017, hung out with them. In 2017 I did. He was doing hanging out. Now here we have another story. The third story that broke was 2016, a little bit before Channel Awesome. And in the third story, it was what made Jason Colavito's blog famous, his Ancient Aliens Review blog famous. One of the things that did Pulitzer's rant, where he's ranting about Colavito posting that a guy named Scott Walter and him and another guy were going to raid or rob a alleged giant grave and go looking around for giants in there. At which point they freaked out and they did what all YouTuber people do: libel and slander. We're going to sue them. We're totally going to sue you for defaming, even though they weren't defaming them by saying they were going to rob a grave, because they actually were going to exhume a grave. So that's not defamation, first of all. But they went on it for weeks. He kept posting over and over again this comment about his libel plans and his alleged lawyer plans, because his last name was similar to that of an award-winning legal precedent, the Pulitzer. He's not related to the legal precedent or the Pulitzer Prize. He's, well, let's say needs help. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Needs. So he's ranting for what amounted to was it was the longest blog rant recorded on the internet since the only topped by the Star Trek Reddit on Picard, which we did a thing on already. And the Picard show that was topped by that. That Reddit thing was longer. But this was the Picard show. Yeah, that was longer. That was one of the other things. That was 2019 and 2019. But this one was 2016. There's two stories going on here. First one is him trying to accuse them of libel and slander for putting up this grave thing, and for the responses by the commenters. But they're not libel or slander because nobody got defamed. But it kept going on about it back and forth. So we already mentioned that before. But no, we're not defaming him here either. We're saying we changed the names and story around a little bit.
Well, I couldn't find me a hat, so I done stuck this on my head. This here's a cat tail. It's got a pokey part right here. It poked me real good. Yeah. It's supposed to clip onto your cat outfit when you're being a furry and all. Well, now it's on Valentine's Day in the night, and we done reached the halfway point of this here episode. Page 28 and into 29. That was halfway point in this one because it's 56 pages, so the middle is 28. Yeah, it's a little longer than the other ones, which means it's going to probably be an 80-minute movie instead of 70. But yeah, so and now I showed the villains doing their thing and moved things around because we probably should have been doing that the whole time. Not going back and fixing it though. And also fix the backgrounds a little bit because there was the characters were some of the characters were the same color as the background or close enough that it couldn't tell. The faces kept going. So we threw something in the background to throw that off. So it'd be like, it's telling the camera don't focus on the background because that's clearly a background, not a face. Yeah. So yeah, and this libel grave thing. Actually, I think the site actually says examine or exhume, but in the story here it says examine a grave. But in order to look it up online and search the article, I believe it still does say exhume or rob or whatever a grave. So yeah, it still does, and it's not libel or slander because he's not a journalist. That's what it is. He's not a journalist. He is an editorial blogger blogging on a blog. He's not a news source, and if he was a news source, he can't be canceled. So Colavito doing anything on a news source, reporting on these two other people that were more celebrities than him. That were, a celebrity cannot sue a tabloid for printing something defamatory about them. Unless you're a really rich, super rich celebrity, rapper lady. Apparently you can do that then. You can sue a tabloid. Yeah, you can in certain cases. But in this case, no. This wouldn't be libel. They'd have no case. As was said before. They'd have no case. So anyway, because they were going to do that. They were going to go to this gravesite and mess with it. That's what they were going to do, and they got stopped by other people. Plain, yeah. The internet sometimes works to stop things like that. Anyway, I look like a drunk monk. This here Star Trekking hat here is a Star Trekking outfit. This is a Star Trek outfit. Well, it's an adult size one of the kid who would be king thing, basically. But yeah, but it's very Star Trek-like. So we just completed Act 2, and I'm not going to do much for the commentary on this thing here. There's not much else other than yeah. Voice sounds a little weird, so I'm going to stop for the evening. Because it'll sound strange if I try to do any female voices, and I'll sound like Mr. Sulu. Yeah, this story was a rant blog from a while back. I was just thinking while we were doing this, I think the reason that nobody actually, like, got in legal trouble for the whole thing was because was there actually a dig? Or did they just do that to get people to go to his audio blog, the Pulitzer? He wanted people to go to his website. Could be all it was. Could be that there was no dig planned at all, and that he just put this up there to get traffic to his website, because it was an audio play file for SoundCloud, and there was a video thing of it done later with Walter. It was on his show, so that they did do eventually a video of it. Of course, it was a Geraldo save type of thing, and they basically didn't find anything there, and claimed they found bones of something. And no, it was not human remains, but yeah. So there was something that they basically made into the show that showed later. It had nothing really to do with this. We're going to reveal that now, about 2/3 of the way through. But yeah, obviously it wasn't libel or slander, either one, because they said they were going to go without any authorities to a grave site somewhere, and they were going to dig up some bones and see whether they were giants. Yeah, that's grave robbing. Yeah, if they don't have any authorities, that's grave robbing. So there probably is somebody that warned them, but it probably wasn't necessarily the park authorities. It was probably Scott's producers who said, okay, if you do this crazy stuff on the internet and claim you're going to do like a show without us at Prometheus Entertainment, and not us personally, but I'm guessing that's what Prometheus Entertainment did. I'm not Prometheus Entertainment. No, obviously not. And it says, okay, if you're not going to do that with the actual show America Unearthed, we can't sanction you going there and doing a dig. So don't do that, because then it would look bad for the show. Don't do that. And he went, okay, and he backed off. But this other guy went over to Andy White's site, and he was going over there and complaining about it. Saying, and he changed the subject quickly to the sword thing after like weeks of ranting about this other thing. This has been boiled down to a script that's basically 56 pages, but it was way longer than that. It took out a lot of the fluff that was in there. A lot of the cussing and swearing is gone. They changed the swearing so that it's YouTube friendly. It was much worse. Yeah. So the basic premise is you got these heroes and villains arguing of semantics about a blog. Very much the Reddit stuff carried on about that kind of thing. Yeah, so Reddit does this too. Reddit was all about Reddit last season, so this one's an earlier thing. Similar to a Reddit in that he let people do like a Reddit on his blog. I think he was using Weebly, which was a. The fact that the Pulitzer guy kept going on about it is what made it interesting. It was one of the longest played Weebly complaint blogs ever, beating out the WordPress ones about other stuff that was not related. I believe there was a WordPress one about the Kardashians, but who cares about that? But yeah, this was bigger. This was bigger than the Channel Awesome scandal, which blew over. There was after years, but that was the subject of at least 2 or 3 episodes of Starship Locations. So, and we made an animated version of our version. That one episode, the critical vitriol one, was the not the scandal, but someone trying to get not the Channel Awesome scandal, but someone trying to get fame through the scandal by making himself famous, by putting himself up there. And this character is included here as an action figure of. I think this is actually the guy from Star Trek 6. Yeah, it's actually General Chang. He was not an old Chang. In the original character was an Australian guy, probably actually closer to this Mahoney dude, really, technically. But yeah, so. It was Christopher Plummer playing General Chang in the movie, so it's kind of strange. He's It's a little odd, just because it's a white guy playing clearly a Chinese name. Yeah, it's a little weird doing that, just because it's a white guy. And I have watched the Lord of the Rings prequel trailer, and it was, people are already complaining, and I was like, I don't care. It's not really technically the Silmarillion, because they can't do that. The Tolkien people said. But yeah, so back to this thing. Did some minor changes from the script. Noticed that there was one scene where a bunch of the heroes were not the heroes. It was actually the villains, but I'd given them the wrong names in the script, and given it to two of the heroes. And it's like, wait a minute, no, those are two of the bad guys. They're actually against the story. And I think the idea here is that Koloth and Cyrano and Critical Vitriol are playing along with this guy to find out what he's up to. And that they're anti-heroes more than villains. Although later on they say they're villains, but they're really anti-heroes. And they're playing along with it. They're opportunists. So yeah, I want to figure out what he's up to. And is this guy sort of a Q or not? Or what is he? I don't know. I don't think he's really a Q. I think he's just a time traveler that has figured out how to do that. So it wouldn't make him an omnipotent time being. It would make him a guy that's figured out how to do the Rasmussen thing from Next Generation. It can go different time periods. What's the other guys in it? I also changed some of the lines around to bring this guy back into it because he disappeared. But yeah, everybody gets something to do. And, the ensemble works out because everything's something to do. And Holly Weird could learn something from all the Calicat stuff that's done here because we managed to give all of our ensemble equal credit and to do stuff. It's going all right this time, I guess. And we're finishing up the second act here fairly quickly. And they probably jinxed it at this point. But yeah, So the second half of it is the sword fakery. That'll be later. Well, filmed back to back. Well, they're all back to back technically. So filmed back to back, they're all we produce an episode takes about 10 days, roughly 8-10 days. Film the episode, and then we go to put the episode together, and that takes about 2 more. And if all the pieces go together, and there isn't much editing to be done. It's the last one I think was on the 12th. If we add up the 10 days, this one ought to be out by 10 days from the 12th, 20th or so, hopefully sooner. But yeah, sometimes we manage to do a 2-part one, like some of the Transformer ones. We did 2-part altogether. So this is the halfway point in the series, and this is episode 4, basically. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So yeah, 5 is the next one is the sword one, sword fakery. The last 2 are the blog before the blog rant blow up, which was the subject of Incident Aldani, technically. That's already been shown. But because Cillian space is weird and time and space are different, we jumped this ahead to 3190 and did the Fallen ones. But we did the Fallen ones cleverly, because we basically said, okay, we're going to do the Fallen ones, but we're going to do the storybook script versions of them before they became the novel. So it's actually the storybook scripts that have been given to the characters in this story from the blog, so that they're even less corrections back to the early. It's even closer to the blog than the book, and it's not libel or slander or fraud either because it's just the comments. It's hardly ever any comments by the Colavito. So it's just the people commenting under it, and under that same auspice, nobody can be sued for anything, obviously, because for what? A story from 5 years ago where somebody had a semantic snarl, basically, as they used to call that in junior college. As a funny story about that was that that I had known of Mark Scards' sister was also going to Evergreen, and I thought that teacher that she was talking about was the same guy that she had taken. Turns out, nope, wasn't the same dude. It's a different English name. But I did eventually take a similar. I did eventually take a class that one she was talking about. It was Canterbury and Chenoweth, and it turns out she was talking about Chenoweth. I was talking about Canterbury. But later on, I had Chenoweth for a class. So technically, I did eventually have a class, Chenoweth class. So eventually, just not then. But yeah. So
Yep. 49. And Mike again. Mike. I want to make this. It doesn't make. Yeah, the girls aren't in this scene just because it's Rich and Mike and Shadow, basically. Because it really is just Rich, Mike, and Shadow. So we have. Because this scene is really them. So that's what it is. In this scene. Because it makes more sense. Okay. Yeah. Rolling.
So basically, the first part of this Grave Robbers of Space is based on two blogs. Jason Colavito of Ancient Aliens Reviews did a thing on it for several weeks, which was over 100 pages. More than that. We whittled it down because we took mainly the body stuff out and made the 50-page first episode. Took the other stuff out and made another 50 pages for the Sword one, which also includes some of the Andy White stuff. Andy White they're both semi-celebrities. They're both, Colavito's been on podcasts and things like that. He cameoed on the first episode of Ancient Aliens. So he does reviews of it. Andy White's been on Kurtz for Oak Island and America Unearthed, a bunch of other stuff. So is Pulitzer. They've all been on Scott Wolter's show. Okay, so that's basically their connection to all of it. This is a loose parody. It is not making fun of them. It's just telling what the bloggers did and what they did. That's a loose parody. In fact, Colavito was as Vita Cola in this version is barely mentioned. He does have a few lines early on, but then they kind of forget about him. So there's two. The other one's a Swordgate one. Now, so Pulitzer, who's a right winger, he did a fringe person. He did the Q-Cat controversy. The Q-Cat reader controversy, a little barcode reader thing. Also, the Swordgate controversy of him and Walter were involved in that. There's a couple of fake-looking Roman swords discovered in Nova Scotia that they claimed were Roman, of course, to prove something, I guess. I don't know. But they were clearly fakes, and there was it didn't help matters much at that time in 2015, 2016, and somewhat earlier too as well in that time period. There was also a slew of King Arthur movies, and a slew of fake swords showed up on eBay and other places. Because of course there's movies that are out, and and Robin Hood movies and things like that, all around the same time period, and everybody wanted Excaliburs and whatever, and everybody wanted a fake sword, so they could a fake Maul sword they can pretend to be King Arthur. So that's what happened there. And so this is not libel or slandering anybody at all. There was no the bottom line of this story and the Swordgate one is kind of both together, is that they self-publish their books after the show ends, which is fine, I guess, but they seem to be self-proclaimed experts on things, so that's all. They originally spurned from a blog that still people are still commenting on it today. Well, maybe not today, but this year. Maybe last year. I haven't looked at it recently, but yeah, people are still commenting. The final solution, which is the last 3 pages of the story, is actually from the other blog, from the Anyway one, in which they asked about whether this Cal person had somehow stopped them. No, he didn't. I know he didn't. That's because we didn't know where the site was. But these other people did. So they knew where the site was. So really, Andy White's probably the one that told on him because he knew where it was. So he was all, yeah, he did it. He did it. But there also is a suggestion early on with the story that they made it up to begin with, which is entirely possible. They could have just made this story up to get traffic to their website and their blog from Jason, who was their competitor. And they could have just decided, no, we're gonna harass this competitor and accuse him of being gay for Scott Walter, which is ridiculous. Because not for Scott Walter anyway. Oh my, no, yeah. but yeah, he wasn't. That's just the go-to with these troll fellas. The troll fellas, if they have a different opinion than yours, automatically they're gonna sue you for your opinion, followed by cancel you for opinion, followed by you must be a gay or a pervert or something, followed by we're gonna stalk you. That's their go-to. That's and maybe they will SWAT as well if they get really really crazy. They'll do that. All because their opinion is different from yours, and they're narcissistic on the internet, thinking anonymity works. It doesn't. They had no law case specifically. They kept claiming there's a law. He's not a lawyer. He's not anything. He had a patent for QCat. He had a patent for kind of a grain. That was rice in this version, but changed it to wheat. but yeah. So that was Pulitzer that it's loosely based on. Very loosely. And he had no story. He was just saying, I'm going to sue you guys because you misinterpreted what we said, even though what we said was literally, we're going to go to a grave site, we're going to dig it up, and we're going to find bones. We're going to find giant bones. Yeah, that would be grave robbing. Yeah, that's not libel or slander. That would be grave robbing. So I thought it would be a fun episode for this series. In fact, it's the one that started the whole thing. Let's do this one and do everything around it, basically. So he has like 7 stories in the 7 acts of the novel. Let's just do those one after the other. We won't have to do another novel of it because it already is a novel. It's already called Planet of the Fallen Ones. We don't need to do it. But we'll just make it easy to do season 2 by like literally getting the dialogue from the blog and just doing it. I did have to do some changes though in the script. There's some characters around because I'd split up the different dialogues, and it was like they said in the days of George Lucas and the original Star Wars, of which he only wrote the first one. The other 2 were 2 other people. That you can't write this. You can't say this dialogue, George. You just can't. It was Harrison Ford saying that. You can't say that dialogue. It doesn't make sense. So we had to rewrite it so the dialogue made sense, because when we read it, it did not. A lot of it didn't make sense. So this has changed considerably from the novel, but no, we're not putting another novel out about that. Why do that? And the idea that they find the fallen one. Of course, we had to have them find a giant at the end. But the gag is more of a. The gag at the end is more of a bait and switch. They open a tomb in this version, and they find Riker in there in the tomb because they're on Riker's land. And they thought the body was switched, and the other guy's like, no, you're just stupid. You're an idiot. So yeah, they do show that. So unlike the story, they deliver the goods. We show a visual of someone going in and finding a body, Riker's corpse. Yes, which has been there for hundreds of years in the tomb. Now that they opened it, anyway, so yeah, he's buried in his uniform. So because it's supposed to be 3190, you see. So, yeah. They probably screwed it up by opening. It wasn't difficult to write, really. Parts of it were, but that was just story-wise, putting it together-wise.
Yeah, these guys are a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so we don't want to necessarily piss them off. But the parody version is such a parody and so much over rewritten. They've probably just best for them to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. Ancient robber story doesn't really exist. There isn't somebody, and I'm not the only. We're not the only ones that did a thing on this blog. There are other versions of this out there where they actually transcripted and made video like things of the Fallen One's story and the giant bones and all that and the grave robbing on YouTube. It's not us. And if you want to see that and see the actual story it's loosely based on, then go for it. Go watch the story. Some other people have done it far more interesting than we did, where they actually went there, like tried to do it. But at that point, then we know what happened because the video people covered it later, years later, and it was 2016 when it happened. So years later, and they basically said, okay, there was a site they were going to. And it wasn't made up, turns out. I looked it up recently. Wasn't made up. They were going to go there. And the production company had watched the podcast. They didn't go to the Colavito stuff at all. So this big, long diatribe that lasted weeks and weeks, Colavito website, they didn't go there. They didn't check that. That would just be comments from people. That's not actionable in any way. Their publicity agent and their people went to the blog, the podcast that he produced, and then a video from the podcast that aired on, I believe it was a special spin-off of Oak Island that finally aired, which is silly too. There's no treasure there. We found everything. There's no treasure. But anyway, it was a spin-off of that, and it was sort of a spin-off of that combined with America on Earth, because it was actually somewhere in, I don't think it was, it wasn't the Nova Scotia one. That was a different one. It wasn't Oak Island. But it was like that. They're out there like that. It was in America, not in Canada, not in Nova Scotia. It was in the Minnesota area. And Prometheus Entertainment basically told them, no, you're not going to do that. It would look bad for Mr. Walter to go there and pretend, even if there was something there, to pretend you're digging up a grave to find treasure and find giant bones. No, you're not going to do that. You're just not. And they freaked out. They lost their shit. They were like, oh my God, those bloggers on that Colavito site, they must have done it. Not thinking it was their own blog, their own podcast that actually did it. Their podcast told the producers, don't do that. They tried. They filmed the phony version of it later. And then the other people caught up on that phony version and they showed it in their clips in their movies. Yeah, this is old, but it's interesting that we brought it back. It's no coincidence that the TV show America on Earth had at that point been ended prematurely, and it's no coincidence that the other one kind of went south too, and they didn't want him on the show anymore for several years. And in 2019, they brought America on Earth back, sort of like History Channel online version, and they did not mention it on that show. So yeah. Know what they were up to, because Scott Walter, being more famous than this other guy, was like, I don't want to get like kicked off the air permanently. I don't want to do that because then I can't do a show. So I'm just gonna ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. So that's probably a good idea on his part. So he will pretend it didn't happen. Come on. But yeah, that's beside the point. No one robbed a grave. That's good. Anyway, so that's a conclusion to this one. And there we go. Now on to the next episode.